I don't think there's ever been a war on drugs, not one that was about getting rid of drugs.
We want rehabilitation versus incarceration, and we also want fairness.
Why must I be in the cell using these bars as a place to hide? Why must I be locked up, constantly contemplating suicide? I'm only 17, where did I go wrong, what did I miss? I wish I was aborted before the 9 months if I was going to be treated like this. But this is where it stops, no more jail, the chains have just been broke. The times when I was wrong have just went up in smoke. I'm a part of the No More Victim Sluggers, it's not a name, it's what we mean. I'm going to knock the bull out the park, me and the rest of my team.
The youth have to be told we are so miseducated.
Let's talk about, as hard as it is, the pain that exists in our communities and how did we get there.
I am in recovery for 8 years off cocaine, and my parents are also in recovery. Everyone in my community is pretty much in recovery. Every male in my community over the age of 20 has been to prison or jail. This is a big issue, and that's what really brings me here.
You get the assumption that that's the only place that crime is taking place. However, if you took that same dragnet to some other communities, you may find that there's crime taking place there too. So that's kind of how racial profiling works. They only concentrate efforts in poor communities and communities of color, and therefore we tend to believe that that's where the only crimes are taking place.
Recovery is not just about drugs and alcohol. It's a lot of issues that clients have other than drugs and alcohol that they have to deal with that causes these problems.
Policies right now are not making sense for our people. You see, they are incarcerating our youth, and our youth are becoming adults in the prison system, and they are not allowed, they're not given the ability to become productive citizens when they get out of prison.
When we get into the prison system, there is no rehabilitation. There is no process of, quote unquote, working your way back into society. So when you get back out again, you do what you have to do.
But where I stay now in Atlanta, it's drugs everywhere. I mean, young people just think it's quick money. It's an easy way to get money, so they can't really get no other job, so they just stick to drugs and they just keep it going in the community.
I've been incarcerated 5 times. You know, I'm trying to be on the road to success. I'm trying to clear my life out, you feel me? I ain't trying to be in jail.
I had a prison like 3 weeks ago. I did 6 years in prison. I'm 19, I went when I was 13. I'm 19 right now. It's rough because, you know, a lot of people feel like that you get, I don't know how these stories get out. They get out like that when you're young, you get to go to this little system or this little building where they feed you and you get big and stuff until you get ready and you get mean, then they put you in general population. I mean, at the age of 13, you there with the top dogs, you there in prison. It was rough. I resent, I despise, and I hate the system. I hate it. It is not fair. And you want to know what I went to prison for? For hitting my uncle with a pole.
And so it's important for us when in terms of our relationship to accepting the legitimacy of law enforcement tactics in our community to really ask ourselves, what is it that they're prosecuting people for? And what is the effect of having this type of law enforcement? We know that drugs are everywhere. They're not exclusive to poor people. They're not exclusive to people of color. And yet if you go to prisons around this country, no matter what state it is, whether you're in Maine, Vermont, Utah, Nevada, Nebraska, where there are not a whole lot of us, or if you're in California, Florida, at Georgia, New York, where there are more of us, the prisons are filled with the same type of people who were there for nonviolent drug offenses.
I was a student at Hampton University and got caught up with a guy who was selling drugs. I ended up turning myself in after being on the run with him, 7 months pregnant. And the government again told me that they didn't want me, that they wanted him. I still was fearful to give them him, and he ended up being found murdered in Seattle, Washington. And once he was found murdered, that's when the tables turned with my particular situation. because they ended up putting his drug weight on me, which was 250. They held me accountable for 255 keys of crack cocaine, even though the prosecutor said I never handled, used, or sold the drugs that were involved. I ended up having my son while I was incarcerated, and 5 minutes after I gave birth to him, I ended up having my legs shackled to the bed, and eventually I spent 2 days in the hospital with him, and my parents ended up taking him, which I was grateful for, because a lot of mothers lose their kids.
I will be going to college to do criminal justice. I want to help change the system.
You know, I've been here for less than a day, and I've seen so many amazing people doing great things in their communities, and just being exposed to that, for one, like, makes me want to go home and just push myself even harder to do better at what I do.
I think the Breaking the Chains conference, from what I've learned and what I've seen today, I think it's very positive. I think that we probably should bring more kids out who are not involved in the juvenile justice system, kids who are just at risk.
I want to invite everyone to begin to start, giving some serious thought to the way this system is working, but I want you to think more so, how do we break the chains?
And it literally becomes even life-threatening to do the work that you have to do. But I'm convinced that where we've got to go now is upstream. That's why we're talking about policy change. That's why we're talking about taking it to the streets. That's why we're talking about a movement that we know will be driven by something big enough to never be compromised by any of the powers of this world.
We are well on our way toward breaking the chains.